Before the court hearings. Before the disciplinary proceedings, there was a healthcare worker speaking out in real time. During the earliest months of COVID, frontline healthcare workers were seeing things the public wasn't. Staffing shortages, isolation protocols, treatment decisions made under pressure, and sometimes without patient consent. When healthcare workers speak publicly on policy or safety concerns, a predictable administrative process often follows. Public speech leads to scrutiny. Scrutiny can escalate into regulatory proceedings. That sequence alone does not imply wrongdoing. This sequence reflects a common administrative process, not a finding of guilt. When a healthcare worker speaks publicly about policy, patient safety, or ethical concerns, it can feel like the reaction that follows is personal. But before jumping to conclusions, it's important to understand how regulatory systems actually work. One of those healthcare workers was Sarah Chujunian. Long before any regulatory action began, she spoke publicly about what she was witnessing as it was happening, not years later, not in hindsight. I have followed her statements and public posts since that period, across X and Facebook, from the very beginning of COVID. What matters here is this: her speaking out came first. The disciplinary process came later. That distinction is critical. Regulatory colleges are meant to investigate patient harm, not speech, not advocacy, and not disagreement with policy. Yet over time, the focus shifted away from patient outcomes and toward the person speaking. This documentary is not about agreeing with every opinion. It is about documenting a timeline. Because when oversight begins after public dissent and continues for years without resolution, the process itself becomes the punishment. Regulatory colleges are often described as neutral bodies that exist to protect patients. In theory, that is their role. In practice, their power comes from something different. Colleges are granted authority by the state. Their rules are enforced through administrative law, not criminal law, which means the protections people expect in court do not always apply. There is no jury. The timelines are open-ended, and the process itself can continue indefinitely. For healthcare workers, this means an investigation does not need to prove patient harm to be devastating. The cost is the process: legal fees, loss of income, reputational damage, years of uncertainty with no clear end. In cases like this, the disciplinary process becomes a form of enforcement, even without a finding. What makes this especially concerning is when proceedings are initiated after public dissent, and when they focus on speech rather than patient outcomes. Colleges are not funded by pharmaceutical companies directly, but they operate within a system shaped by government policy, public health directives, and political pressure. When governments pursue healthcare workers using taxpayer-funded resources and colleges act in parallel, the imbalance of power becomes impossible to ignore. At that point, oversight no longer feels independent. It begins to resemble enforcement. And when enforcement is prolonged, unresolved, and detached from patient harm, the question becomes unavoidable. Who is being protected, and from what? This is not just about one nurse. And it is not just about one regulatory body. What's at stake is what happens when healthcare workers learn that speaking honestly can lead to years of unresolved proceedings. When that happens, fewer people speak at all. Nurses stop raising concerns. Doctors stop questioning protocols. Paramedics stop documenting what they see. Not because the concerns disappear, but because the cost of speaking becomes too high. That silence does not protect patients. It removes one of their last safeguards. Informed consent depends on professionals being able to speak freely. Bodily autonomy depends on patients receiving complete information, including uncertainty, risk, and alternatives. When oversight shifts from protecting patients to enforcing compliance, patient rights are quietly eroded. You do not have to agree with every statement Sarah Chujunian has ever made to see the problem here. The issue is structural. A system that punishes speech without demonstrating patient harm, that prolongs proceedings without resolution, and that exhausts individuals through process alone is no longer functioning as protection. It is functioning as deterrence, and that should concern everyone who cares about healthcare, consent, and accountability. By this point, a deeper question emerges. How can these proceedings continue for years, without resolution or accountability? Part of the answer lies in who is paying. Regulatory colleges and government agencies operate using public resources. Their lawyers are funded by taxpayers. Their timelines are not limited by personal cost. The healthcare worker on the other side pays alone. Legal defense is personal. Lost income is personal. Stress, uncertainty, and reputational damage are personal. Even when no patient harm is proven, the cost of defending oneself can be financially devastating. This is not criminal law. It is administrative law, where proceedings can stretch indefinitely, and punishment often occurs before any final finding. When the state can pursue action without personal consequence, and individuals cannot afford to defend themselves, power becomes lopsided. That imbalance is not theoretical. It determines who speaks, who stays silent, and which concerns never surface. Taxpayers should ask a simple question: are public funds being used to protect patients or to enforce compliance? Because when state power is exercised without proportional limits, accountability disappears quietly. And when accountability disappears, trust follows. This is the Canadian Citizens Journal.